I'm Janice Palm from Shepherd's Counseling Services, and we provide therapy for adults who've been sexually abused as children. So we're kind of on the other end. Wish more of this had happened. I have a question, and I think this is maybe primarily for Dr. Finkelhor, and in light of the statistics that we heard about kids reporting in schools, 11%, and that seems, consistent. How do you gather the data that says, incidences are going down? It seems like there's a gap, and sort of an intuitive sense of that between what's reported and how we gather statistics that say, okay, we can say it's going down, which is great news, but can you?
The data come from a variety of different sources. There's agency data and there's victim data. Probably the one that's most persuasive to me is the victim data, of course, because these are based on surveys of young people themselves. Several of them national surveys. Typically, they're done in telephone interviews or in self-administered school samples, where there are questionnaires that young people fill out. And although some of these studies have defects in terms of the exact categories of things that they're covering. But the important thing is that they're asking about the same thing in the same way at different time periods so that you can see how the trends go. The fact that things are going down doesn't mean that they're not high. And the fact that things are going down doesn't mean that everything that's occurring is getting reported. So, you could still be seeing lots and lots of cases. But I'm persuaded by the fact that you have this information from both victim surveys and the agency data over relatively long periods of time from very large data sets that do seem to converge in the message that they're giving to us.
Thank you. Questions? Question? Lori?
Thank you. Should I just speak? Yeah, you can also come down to these mics. If you have questions, you can certainly line up or wait for Karen to come see you.
Thank you so much. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the common characteristics of folks who do end up sexually abusing children. I mean, you talked about men, women, et cetera, in the school setting, but are most abusers people who have been abused themselves? Anything like that?
I guess I would say that the most challenging thing about answering the question is the heterogeneity or the diversity of offenders. So what's easiest to say is what offenders aren't. So David had mentioned about stranger danger. We spent a lot of years focusing on stranger danger. We expect that accounts for probably 10% or less of who offenders are. Other than that, I mean, we know that they're known to their victims. We know that there's a large proportion that are extended family members, but they're male, they're female, they're older, they're younger, they're teens, they're peers. So it's really hard to say that there's a particular characteristic. And I think in some ways that's the challenge of trying to educate, especially children and teens, but even of educating parents, because we usually like to focus on somebody in a raincoat or someone driving up with a car. And what we should really be focusing on is looking for patterns of behavior. So some of the things that you had mentioned as part of your talk with the modus operandi or patterns of behavior that go on in the school are also the kinds of things we see in the community. So giving gifts, special privileges, going ahead and with teenagers, use of substances and alcohol that's then used as leverage. Seeing in organizational settings who are the favorites sometimes. And again, it's difficult because some of those people truly do have favorites. Some of those people truly are the teacher of the year. But then again, that's also a place where I think we could do a second look. So I would encourage us to think more about the patterns of behavior that we look for that should be red flags, rather than who are the people. Because I think we often make mistakes when we get pictures of who offenders are in our mind, and oftentimes it's not who we think about as the characteristic offender who actually goes ahead and offends.
Great. Good answer. Thank you, Dr. Kaufman. How'd that fit, Lori? Is that okay? How about one more question? Gentleman in the second row here.
The area of prevention, Dr. Kaufman, is there anything that's being done to prevent the offender from acting out?
Now, I think there's a number of ways to answer that. There are actually some really wonderful initiatives, and I think that it was mentioned at the beginning that we've become much more thoughtful about what are things that we can do to reduce risks that we believe are associated with people perhaps engaging in either risky, inappropriate, or offending behavior. So on one end of the continuum with prevention, we're trying more and more to focus on offering good skills to males in particular, making sure that we're focusing on healthy relationships, healthy sexual behavior to prevent people from engaging in offending behavior. If you're talking about the other end of the continuum, in terms of people who have been once identified as an offender, what?
No, not
Okay.
those. Those, I'm thinking about that there may be there's a lot of people out there that perhaps have that tendency, and perhaps they're embarrassed, but if they know that there is a service somewhere to go and get some help, I think, prevent the problem even before it starts. That's what I'm talking about.
Sure, and there are programs like Stop It Now, for example, that's a national and international program that is specifically designed around trying to get information out to people who might recognize in themselves a proclivity to be attracted to children in a sexual way, and they work to try to make contact with those folks in a safe way. And when I say safe, because one of the issues about getting people to call in is people won't call in if they believe that that's going to lead to some sort of legal intervention. So they're assigned a number so they can have continuity. They call in, they can get counseling, and they're referred and encouraged to get some more substantial help from a therapist, for example, to try to work through those issues to prevent them from actually going on to offend. So that's one of a couple different programs that exist around the country that try to focus on folks who are in that position and try to keep them from offending. Good question.
That's a really good question. Thank you very much.